The galaxy would later record this moment as a minor diplomatic failure. Historians would be wrong. This was not a failure of diplomacy. This was the second the universe made a mistake it could never undo. For 3 centuries, humanity had been quiet. Not weak, just quiet. They traded, explored, learned, and argued among themselves, just as they always had. To outsiders, humans looked fragmented, slow to unite, and painfully emotional. Many alien civilizations mistook that noise for disorder. Few understood it was pressure building. The Zaroon Compact did not understand it at all. The Zaroon were ancient by galactic standards. Their empire spanned dozens of systems, their ships carved from black alloy grown rather than built. They believed in efficiency, hierarchy, and control. Species that resisted were either absorbed or erased. This system had worked for thousands of years. When Zaroon scouts entered human-controlled space, they expected negotiations to end in surrender. What they received instead was a warning. It came from a small human ship positioned deliberately in their path. No weapons charged. No shields raised. Just a single transmission, broadcast in every known frequency. "Turn back," the human voice said. Calm. Measured. Almost gentle. "You are entering protected territory. We do not seek conflict. But if you continue, we will respond. This is your only warning." High Executive Vila of the Zaroon listened in silence from the bridge of his flagship. His long fingers tapped the armrest, more amused than concerned. Humans. A young species. Creative. Yes. Curious. Certainly. But scattered. Emotional. Slow to agree on anything. Their military records showed internal wars, endless ceasefires, treaties broken and remade. To Vila, that history meant one thing. They did not have the stomach for a real war. "Mark the transmission as noted," Vila said. "Proceed as planned." The fleet advanced. What Vila did not know, what no one outside humanity understood, was that the warning had never been meant to stop the Zaroon. It had been meant to mark them. Across human space, systems woke up. On orbital stations, long-dormant arrays powered on. In shipyards, unfinished hulls slid from shadows into open docks. On worlds light-years apart, human networks synchronized without debate, without argument. Old rivalries fell silent. Borders stopped mattering. Because the warning had been heard. Dr. Ilara Miles stood alone in a control chamber beneath Earth's lunar surface. She was not a soldier. She had never fired a weapon in her life. Her expertise was predictive systems, models that mapped behavior across time. She had spent years studying one question that fascinated and terrified her. What happens when humans decide not to stop? Her screens filled with data as the Zaroon fleet crossed the final boundary. Ilara exhaled slowly. "They ignored it," she whispered. On Mars, Ship Commander Jonah Reyes watched the same moment from the bridge of a small patrol cruiser. His crew was silent. Not afraid. Focused. "Orders?" his pilot asked. Jonah shook his head. "None yet." That confused the pilot. The Zaroon fleet outnumbered local defenses. A first strike could have slowed them. Everyone knew it. But humans had learned something across their violent history. Striking first ended wars quickly. Waiting ended them permanently. The Zaroon did not attack Earth. They didn't need to. Instead, they chose what conquerors always chose. A demonstration. The colony of Havenfall orbited a gas giant on the edge of human space. It was a civilian world. Farms. Research domes. Families. Children who had never seen Earth. Vila watched the feeds as Zaroon cannons aligned. "Fire," he said. Havenfall burned in 7 minutes. Cities cracked open like glass. Atmosphere bled into space. Emergency beacons screamed and went unanswered, not because humans didn't hear them, but because they were not meant to be answered. Across every human network, the footage played. No commentary. No speeches. Just the fire. Jonah Reyes felt his jaw tighten until it hurt. One of his crew quietly removed a photo from her console and held it against her chest. Someone else stood up and walked off the bridge without asking permission. No one stopped them. On Earth, leaders gathered in silence. No shouting. No votes. The arguments had already happened in the past. This moment required no discussion. The response was unanimous because it was instinctive. The Zaroon sent another transmission soon after. "Submit," Vila said calmly. "Your people will be spared further losses." The reply came from humanity less than 3 seconds later. It was not a threat. It was a statement. "You were warned. You chose not to listen. We are coming." Then the human signal vanished. Vila laughed. "They bluff," he said. "They always do." He did not notice the change in the stars. Because nothing visible had happened yet. Human ships did not charge. No grand fleets emerged. No dramatic counterattack followed. For weeks, nothing happened at all. The Zaroon mistook this for fear. What it actually was preparation. Dr. Ilara Miles watched the projections shift. Human industry exceeded every model. Civilian vessels converted overnight. Experimental technologies cleared ethics boards that no longer existed. Old laws quietly expired. Humanity did not declare total war. They declared pursuit. Jonah Reyes received his orders a month later. Not to defend. Not to retaliate. To follow, the message said. No matter how long it takes. He smiled for the first time since Havenfall burned. The Zaroon fleet finally advanced deeper. Confident again. They did not know that human probes already followed them through folded space. They did not know that every jump, every maneuver, every mistake was being recorded. They did not know that humans had stopped asking how to win. They were asking how to make sure it never happened again. The hunt had not begun with explosions. It began with patience. And patience was something humans had practiced for millions of years. The Zaroon believed silence meant hesitation. In their long history, species that went quiet after losing a colony usually fractured. Panic followed. Resistance faded. Then surrender came. That pattern had never failed them. So when weeks passed without a human counterattack, High Executive Vila felt satisfied. His fleet continued its advance, station by station, cutting deeper into human space. Each destroyed outpost was meant to weaken morale. Each burned world was meant to teach obedience. Instead, something else was happening. Far from the front lines, humanity was changing its shape. Dr. Ilara Miles watched the transformation from a room filled with soft light and endless data. She no longer modeled outcomes. She observed momentum. The equations had stopped predicting victory or defeat. They now measured inevitability. Human logistics had restructured themselves without command. Cargo ships rerouted. Civilian AI volunteered processing power. Old satellites were repurposed as listening nodes. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was rushed. Humans were not reacting. They were adapting. On the bridge of the cruiser Wayfinder, Jonah Reyes followed the Zaroon fleet at extreme distance. His ship never engaged. Never revealed itself. It moved through shadowed routes, drifting just close enough to watch. The Zaroon did not notice him. That worried Jonah. "Still no pursuit response," his navigator said quietly. Jonah nodded. "They think we're scared." He looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed Zaroon ships. Blue dots marked human assets, but those dots weren't forming lines. They weren't clustering into fleets. They were spreading. The Zaroon struck another colony. Then another. Each time, they broadcast the destruction. Each time, they waited for human outrage. Each time, they received only silence. What Vila did not know was that every broadcast fed human systems. The weapons used. The timing. The energy signatures. The hesitation between shots. Humans were learning faster than the Zaroon could adapt. In a shipyard above Earth, massive frames took shape. These were not warships in the traditional sense. They carried fewer guns. Thinner armor. But they were built to last. Built to run. Built to follow. Someone named them pursuit vessels, but the name never mattered. Humans understood what they were for. Across human worlds, volunteers came forward. Not just soldiers. Engineers. Medics. Pilots who had never flown in combat. People who had lost someone on Havenfall or one of the worlds that followed. They did not ask when the war would end. They asked how long it would take. The first true human strike did not come as a battle. It came as a failure. A Zaroon supply convoy vanished between systems. No distress call. No debris. Just absence. The next convoy arrived to find nothing waiting. Then another failed to report. Vila dismissed it as mechanical error. Until a fourth convoy disappeared. Zaroon patrols increased. Scans widened. Defensive formations tightened. Still, no enemy appeared. Jonah Reyes watched from afar as a Zaroon cruiser slowed unexpectedly. Its engines flickered. Systems glitched. For 30 seconds, it drifted helplessly. That was all the opening the humans needed. 3 small human vessels slipped out of folded space. They fired once, precise, controlled, and vanished again. The Zaroon cruiser split apart, not violently, but cleanly, like a machine taken apart by careful hands. Jonah exhaled. "That's new," his pilot whispered. "That's learning," Jonah replied. The Zaroon fleet began to feel hunted. Not attacked. Not challenged. Followed. Their long-range scans showed nothing, yet their ships kept failing. Communications lagged. Navigation errors increased. Supply lines stretched thin. When they slowed to regroup, something broke. When they rushed ahead, something vanished. Vila's advisors grew uneasy. "This is inefficient," one said. "They refuse engagement." Vila frowned. "They lack courage." But the Oracle, an ancient Zaroon intelligence older than Vila himself, disagreed. "High Executor," it said softly, "human behavior aligns with pursuit pattern warfare." Vila stiffened. "Explain." "They are not trying to stop you," the Oracle continued. "They are removing your ability to continue." Vila dismissed it with a wave. "We have numbers. We have time." The Oracle did not respond. Because time was exactly what the Zaroon were losing. Dr. Ilara Miles watched the data converge. Human losses were tragic but finite. Zaroon losses were subtle but compounding. Every failure cost them resources they could not replace quickly. Every delay stretched morale thinner. Humans had learned something long ago on their own world. Endurance wins wars faster than power. On the Wayfinder, Jonah received new orders. "Detach," the message read. "Proceed independently. Objective, follow primary target until termination." Jonah stared at the screen. "Termination?" his navigator asked. Jonah smiled grimly. "Not today. Not tomorrow." He leaned forward. "But eventually." The Zaroon fleet crossed into what they believed was safe territory. Reinforcements waited ahead. Supply depots. Defensive stations. They did not notice the human ships slipping into their wake. They did not notice the quiet tightening of the net. They did not realize that humanity had stopped defending its home. Humanity was now moving outward. And humans never stopped once they began to chase. The galaxy would soon learn a lesson the Zaroon had ignored. A warning only matters if you listen. If you don't, humans will make sure you remember. The Zaroon had always believed fear was loud. In their wars, fear came as riots, desperate transmissions, and frantic retreats. It was visible, predictable, easy to exploit. But what followed them now was different. This fear had no voice, no shape. It was quiet. High Executor Vila stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the star map. Routes once marked safe now glowed with warning symbols. Supply lines had become liabilities. Even their own territory felt hostile. "Status," Vila demanded. A senior officer hesitated before answering. 3 more convoys lost. 2 patrol ships failed to return. 1 station reports system sabotage from unknown sources. Vila's fingers tightened. Unknown sources. Yes. High Executor. No visual confirmation. No signals detected. That should not have been possible. The Zaroon had sensors capable of detecting quantum fluctuations. Nothing should move unseen. Yet the humans were there, close enough to touch systems, disrupt engines, and vanish before a response could form. The Oracle spoke again, its tone unchanged but heavier. This is escalation through endurance. Humans are not expending force. They are expending time. Vila turned sharply. They are bleeding themselves as well. Yes, the Oracle replied. But humans tolerate loss differently. Their history suggests they view suffering as proof of purpose. That unsettled Vila more than any weapon. On the human side, Admiral Celine Kale watched a live feed from a pursuit node hidden near Zaroon space. She had never been meant to command fleets. She had been a logistics planner, someone who made wars possible rather than visible. Now she stood at the center of the most dangerous campaign humanity had ever launched. They're slowing, an analyst said. Fuel usage rising. Repair cycles doubling. Celine nodded. Good. No cheers followed. No celebration. This was not about victory moments. This was about pressure. Humanity had agreed on one rule. Never give the enemy relief. Jonah Reyes felt that rule deep in his bones. His ship had followed the same Zaroon task group for months. He knew their patterns now. When they rested. When they panicked. When they argued. He watched them grow cautious, then paranoid. One night cycle, his engineer broke the silence. They're broadcasting again. Jonah closed his eyes briefly. Put it through. Vila's image appeared, calmer than expected, but strained. Human vessels, Vila said. This conflict is inefficient. Withdraw. We will cease hostilities. Jonah stared at the screen. No apology. No admission. Just calculation. He muted the transmission. They still don't understand, his navigator said. No, Jonah agreed. They think this is negotiation. Jonah sent a single response. You crossed our line. This ends when you stop moving. Then he cut the channel. The Zaroon fleet accelerated. So did the humans. Human pursuit ships were not faster in straight lines. They didn't need to be. They were smarter. They predicted jumps. Anticipated exits. They waited where the Zaroon had to go, not where they wanted to be. Each encounter was brief. One disabled ship. One corrupted station. One vanished asset. Nothing dramatic. Everything devastating. On Earth, Dr. Ilara Miles updated her models. For the first time since the war began, she felt something close to fear, not for humanity, but for what they were becoming. Humans were not angry anymore. They were focused. Focus changed everything. A Zaroon defense platform near their core systems went dark without warning. Its weapons never fired. Its crew never sent a distress call. When another platform investigated, they found the station intact, air, power, life support, all running. But no crew. They were gone. The message that followed reached every Zaroon world. We can reach you anywhere. Panic rippled through the Zaroon hierarchy. Vila convened his council. This must end, one advisor said. We withdraw fully. Another shook their head. They will follow us home. The Oracle spoke last. There is no safe distance from a pursuit predator once it commits. Vila slammed his fist down. Enough. We are the Zaroon. We do not run. But even as he spoke, his voice carried doubt. Because something fundamental had shifted. The humans were no longer defending themselves. They were enforcing a lesson. Jonah Reyes watched as the Zaroon flagship altered course unexpectedly. It wasn't strategic. It was emotional. They're trying to break contact, his pilot said. Jonah leaned back. They can't. He sent the command. All nearby human assets adjusted. Not to block. Not to attack. To follow. The Zaroon jumped. The humans followed within seconds. For the first time, Vila felt something unfamiliar. Not fear of death. Fear of inevitability. Human ships began appearing openly now. Not in fleets. In pairs. Singles. Always at the edges. Always watching. Never stopping. Dr. Ilara Miles closed her eyes as her final projection locked in. Human victory probability. Irrelevant. Conflict duration. Variable. Zaroon survival probability. Approaching 0. She whispered the truth aloud, though no one asked. They don't need to destroy them quickly. Because humans had learned long ago that the most effective way to end a threat was to make sure it could never rest again. And the Zaroon had not slept in months. The hunt was no longer symbolic. It was personal. And it was only accelerating. By the 7th month of pursuit, the Zaroon no longer measured time in cycles or rotations. They measured it in losses. High Executive Vila stood alone on the command deck more often now. His officers rotated constantly, some reassigned, some broken by exhaustion, some quietly removed after mistakes that could not be forgiven. The bridge felt smaller, darker. Every route was compromised. Every pause was punished. The humans never announced their presence. They didn't taunt. They didn't boast. They simply were there. Always behind. Always close enough to be felt. Vila had once believed fear came from overwhelming force. He was wrong. Fear came from knowing something would not stop. Another report arrived. A forward repair station, one that had been hidden, shielded, and defended by 3 layers of security, had gone offline. How? Vila demanded. The officer swallowed. Human infiltration teams. High Executor. They entered without triggering alarms. Disabled command systems. Left before defenders arrived. Casualties. The officer hesitated. None. Vila blinked. None. They locked the crew inside. Sealed systems. Left life support running. That was worse. The Oracle spoke softly, its tone unchanged but heavy with finality. They are demonstrating restraint, not weakness. Humans are communicating intent. Vila turned slowly. What intent? That they could kill you at any moment, the Oracle replied. But they are choosing not to. Yet. That night, Vila slept for the first time in weeks. He woke screaming. On the human flagship Endurance, Admiral Celine Kale listened as reports flowed in. Her officers were calm. Efficient. Focused. They spoke of sabotage, tracking, attrition, never conquest. Because conquest was not the goal. Zaroon fleet cohesion down another 12%, an analyst reported. Celine nodded. Maintain pressure. Admiral, another officer said carefully, we are receiving civilian transmissions from Zaroon worlds. They're asking for mercy. Celine closed her eyes for a moment. How many asked for mercy when Havenfall burned? She asked. No one answered. Continue, she said. Jonah Reyes felt the shift before anyone told him. The Zaroon were no longer acting like conquerors. They were acting like prey. Their maneuvers were erratic. Their jumps shorter. Their formations tighter, not for strength, but for comfort. Jonah had hunted animals before, long ago on Earth. He recognized the signs. They were tiring. They're running low on fuel, his engineer said. If they jump again, they'll strand themselves. Jonah considered that. Good, he said. Then they'll stop running. The final mistake came sooner than expected. Cornered near a dead system, the Zaroon fleet made a choice born of desperation. They turned toward a populated human trade corridor. Vila believed the threat of civilian casualties would slow the pursuit. It did slow it. For exactly 11 minutes. Human evacuation protocols activated instantly. Trade ships vanished into folded space. Stations sealed and powered down. The corridor went dark. Then the humans arrived. Not in force. In silence. Jonah watched as human ships surrounded the Zaroon fleet, not attacking, not blocking. Just present. Close enough that targeting solutions locked automatically. Vila opened a channel. His image appeared on every human bridge. "We surrender," he said. The words tasted like ash. "We will withdraw completely. We will compensate losses. We will." Celine Kale appeared in reply. Her face was calm. Tired. Human. "You had a warning," she said. "You ignored it." "We did not understand," Vila pleaded. "We believed." "You believed we would stop," Celine said quietly. She leaned closer to the camera. "We don't." Vila's voice shook. "Then what do you want?" Celine did not hesitate. "We want certainty." She nodded once. The human ships moved. They did not fire wildly. They did not destroy the fleet all at once. They targeted engines, command nodes, power relays. Ship after ship was disabled, not destroyed, but rendered helpless. The Zaroon fleet drifted. Alive. Watching. Jonah felt a chill as the final phase began. Human boarding teams deployed. Not soldiers screaming into battle, but engineers, system specialists, and quiet figures in unmarked armor. They moved through Zaroon ships like ghosts, shutting down weapons, sealing doors, isolating command staff. Vila was taken alive. He expected execution. It never came. Instead, he was placed in a small chamber aboard a human vessel. No restraints. No guards. Just a single screen. The oracle appeared on it. "I warned you," it said. Vila slumped. "Why didn't they kill us?" The oracle paused, a rare thing. "Because humans do not seek revenge," it said. "They seek resolution." "What resolution is this?" Vila whispered. The screen changed. He saw Zaroon worlds, untouched, intact, but surrounded. Human ships in distant orbits. Human presence everywhere. "They are ensuring you can never threaten them again," the oracle continued. "Not through fear. Through memory." Vila closed his eyes. The humans had not destroyed the Zaroon Empire. They had ended its future. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched. They saw a young species absorb unimaginable loss, and respond not with chaos, but with purpose. Not with rage, but with relentless clarity. Humanity had not claimed dominance. They had claimed a boundary. And the galaxy understood something new. Warnings were not threats. They were promises. And when humans said stop, they meant forever. The war did not end with celebration. There were no parades across Earth, no triumphant speeches, no songs written about glorious victories. Humanity did not mark the end of the conflict with joy. They marked it with silence. High Executive Vila sat in a simple room aboard a human station orbiting a neutral star. Through the wide window, he could see ships passing, human ships. Not in formation. Not threatening. Just present. Everywhere. He had been there for weeks. No interrogations. No torture. No humiliation. That, somehow, made it worse. Every day, he received reports. Zaroon fleets dismantled. Military academies closed. Weapon forges repurposed into civilian production. Human overseers never interfered directly. They only observed. Advised. Ensured compliance. The Zaroon Empire still existed. But it would never expand again. Vila finally understood. Humans had not come to rule. They had come to end the cycle. Across the galaxy, news spread faster than light. Entire civilizations replayed recordings of the pursuit. Analysts argued. Philosophers debated. Militaries rewrote doctrines overnight. One conclusion emerged everywhere. Do not cross humanity. Not because they were the strongest, but because they were the most persistent. On Earth, Dr. Ilara Miles watched the final projections dissolve. For the first time since the warning, her models showed stability. Not peace. Peace was fragile, but balance. Humanity had paid dearly. Entire worlds were gone. Families erased. The scars would never fade. But humanity had not fractured. They had unified in a way no external force had ever achieved before. And that frightened her more than the war itself. Admiral Celine Cale stood before the United Assembly one last time. Her uniform was worn. Her hair streaked with grey she had not had before the war. "We will not pursue further," she said simply. "The objective has been achieved." A delegate asked the question that echoed across human space. What was the objective? Celine did not answer immediately. "To make sure no one ever believes we will accept extinction quietly," she said at last. There was no applause. Only understanding. Jonah Reyes returned home months later. His ship docked at Mars, its hull scarred but intact. He stepped onto the platform and felt something strange. Relief. He had followed the Zaroon longer than he had lived anywhere in his adult life. The chase had become routine. Purpose. Now it was over. A young officer approached him. "Commander," she asked hesitantly, "do you think they'll ever try again?" Jonah looked up at the stars. "No," he said. "They learned." "And if someone else doesn't?" Jonah smiled faintly. "Then they'll hear the warning." Far beyond human space, a council of ancient species added a single line to their first contact protocols. If humans warn you once, listen. If they warn you twice, leave. There will not be a third warning. The Zaroon survived. Their children grew up under a different sky, one where conquest was no longer a dream but a cautionary tale. Vila lived to see that future. Every night, he remembered the moment he had laughed at a human warning. He never laughed again. Humanity returned to its arguments, its politics, its endless internal conflicts. From the outside, they looked divided once more. Disorganized. Emotional. The galaxy mistook that for weakness again. But the civilizations that had watched the hunt knew better. They knew that beneath the noise was something ancient and patient. Something that waited. Because humans did not need to dominate the stars. They only needed one truth to be remembered. If you force humanity to choose between survival and mercy, they will choose survival. And they will never stop choosing it. The stars grew quiet again. But this time, they remembered.